2006, long before this hit theater screens, a $220 million Justice League movie would enter pre-production. It would be directed by legendary director George Miller. It would star this guy as Batman, and then it was quietly shelved. It would never see the light of day. Turns out, it's not the best idea to do a superhero team-up movie without establishing the heroes first. But if the MCU has taught us anything, it's that the opposite situation can be an even bigger problem. And there's one single phrase that best describes where it's gone wrong. Coming off of bankruptcy, Marvel had a plan going into the MCU, and it was a good one. They licensed a B-tier Marvel character or two and popularized them through film. Introduce new character to the masses. Iron Man wasn't the most popular Marvel character. He wasn't Spider-Man. It was a colossal risk to build a movie around him. And it was just him here. Iron Man, Thor, Cap 1, these movies didn't hide behind characters or their world. They introduced them to ours. Phase 1 and 2 was Marvel trusting clear points of view, a commitment to tonality, and so you got a dark, lonely survival thriller in Iron Man, a high fantasy story in Thor, a coming-of-age war movie in Captain America. And this commitment to genre and tone continued into Phase 2. Here's a spy thriller, an action comedy, a heist movie. These were genre films, and the genre wasn't superhero. And then Marvel had built a decade-long escalation model, and in one instant, it was gone. And after this came a psychology shift. See, these movies worked because Marvel said, trust us, you'll like this character at the end, and then built prickly, multi-dimensional characters. And then in Phase 3, right before the snap, that sentence shifted to, don't worry, you don't have to like them, you already like someone else in this movie. Now, introducing characters wasn't really about expanding the world anymore. It was about brand reinforcement. It was about finding reasons to put out more product without a clear endgame by forcing in more and more of what you know. The Avengers movies worked originally because Marvel didn't need them to. They had built film franchises that stood on their own. When Marvel lost its narrative center after Endgame, what they really lost was their film philosophy. They weren't building character-driven movie franchises anymore. They were building safety nets to catch the universe. They just imploded. Okay. Narrative gravity is something you're subconsciously exposed to every time you watch a good movie. Everything gravitates towards and around him or her. When you build that center of gravity around a universe instead of your characters, well, now suddenly your characters don't have one if this happens. So Marvel became self-referential. It became nostalgic of what it had already made that had worked, and it tried to build back up around that. Captain Marvel didn't get a sequel. She got an ensemble film that also had this guy in it. Why? Well, we'll get there. Spider-Man somehow became Spider-Man. Doctor Strange became Doctor Strange and Wanda. Thor became Thor and Hulk. Black Widow became Black Widows. Look at Phase 3 and forward of the MCU and ask yourself, how many movies do not feature other already established MCU characters? It's not as many as you think. Every movie highlighted you could reasonably call a team-up movie and or prominently features other Avengers. After featuring 32 named Avengers-esque heroes in Endgame, it started swallowing itself. Suddenly, the movies had no clear center of gravity as multiple characters competed for narrative attention in every film. And in some ways, according to the president of Marvel Studios, that's apparently kind of your fault.
I do not want another single pop culture reference out of you for the rest of the trip, you understand?
I'm trying to say that something is coming.
Kevin Feige has stated that audiences now expect everything to connect immediately. But that will happen when you start putting heroes on screen that are judged by their place in the universe and not on their character. Remember that safety net? Marvel's new MO is nostalgia as structural support. Yeah! That's what has propped up post-endgame MCU. That's what has replaced that center of gravity, an obsession with itself. So why do these exist the way they do? Well, for two reasons. Something like this and this feel more like franchise maintenance than organic decisions. That doesn't make them bad movies at all, but it doesn't help the feeling of fatigue. And this feels the same. Is this a good idea or a way to keep the franchise going and fill release slots? And then there's movies like this. I thought this movie was fun, but it also feels like this did. Like a bit of a setup delivery system, a stair to climb to an end goal. We need to introduce the multiverse legal system. Here's how. And again, a team-up movie. Noticing the trend? So now we arrive at streaming.
You see where you are? You remember this place?
We wanted characters to be able to move freely between films and series so it feels like one ongoing story. That's another paraphrase quote from Kevin Feige about Marvel's Disney Plus shows and now movies. The problem with this logic isn't just the obvious oversaturation, it's not even the obvious diluting of the worlds and characters. The real problem is maybe the MCU's biggest issue across the board. It's that with this logic, you're creating characters that become tourists in your own world. Cinematic tourists. Which means eventually they fail to stick anywhere. You take away their ability to exist as their own narrative center of gravity, the one these characters had here and here and here, and replace it with some abstract new potential endgame idea that may or may not come to fruition. Event first, characters second. Audiences feel this. Is it superhero fatigue, or are you creating characters that no longer feel like they have their own individual stories to tell? Feel like pieces of a puzzle instead of a multi-dimensional puzzle themselves. That might work in comics, but a good film needs that structure. You're making movies first. The events should create themselves.
It's time to put this bad dog to sleep.
Other studios tried cinematic universes. This was not much of one. It was about familiar icons, the crossover being the entire reason for the movie's existence. This was the exact studio behavior Marvel was trying to solve with the MCU, and did. But now here we are. The crossover is the reason the movie exists. The ensemble is the event. Marvel is now a part of the very model it replaced. So when Kevin Feige says things about the Marvels, like it felt natural to bring all these characters together because they've all grown in different corners of the MCU, and the subtext of the quote is not Carol's story demanded this, and instead it's a universe first justification, well, that's the same logic as this. And that's the opposite of the character first logic of phase 1 and 2. So I leave you with one question. What genre is this? Or this? What about this? If your answer is superhero, then you already understand what it seems Marvel might not. You already might be ahead of the studio. Marvel didn't lose talent, it's gained it. Marvel didn't lose resources, it has more than ever. It lost its willingness to take a risk on character. The success of its universe convinced Marvel that its events were its gravitational center, when its center of gravity was always focused on sharp character studies. Characters that existed by themselves. Characters allowed Marvel to make movies that acted like movies, that spread across genre, tonality, ideas. That's what good character building does. Good character building in writing and filmmaking requires some level of blind belief. Ensembles and crossovers are now Marvel's way of making sure they're never blind again. They enable visible reassurance to the studio. Those realities are deeply at odds. Marvel's non-Avenger movies aren't the box office world breakers now they once were. That's no surprise, but it might not be fatigue. It might be belief. Marvel doesn't believe its heroes can survive on their own anymore. And if they don't believe, why should we?
I am Iron Man.
I'm Dewey, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, press the like button, hit subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes on the channel. And this has been